So we're just going to talk about operational cybersecurity. What is identify, protect, detect, and respond, and discover. On-device mitigation strategies, we're going to look at prioritization, OPC, and SIP security, along with firmware and patch management. Firmware and patch management are a little bit different in the OT side than they are the IT side, because if IT's down, it is what it is, right? But if your OT goes down, you have a very limited amount of time to do patch management, patches, unless it's severe vulnerability that you need to address urgently. You're not going to do a lot of updates and stuff like that, except, in scheduled downtimes. We're also going to take a look at general firewall concepts where IT and OT converge. So we're going to look at that overview. We're going to look at a few tools that we have to help with, continuous threat detection solutions, as well as there's something called a vulnerability discovery service, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. So there's always a security strategy, and this isn't just Rockwell. First thing is to identify. You need to identify your vulnerabilities. Once you you can't protect what you haven't identified. So you have to identify, then you want to protect your critical assets and data. If there is any sort of security issue, ransomware, any other type of cybersecurity risk, first thing you do is detect and respond, to any and all current and evolving cyber threats as well. The last thing is, you want to be able to recover quickly if you do get hit with any type of event at all. So the identify and protect, ES&E and Rockwell, we help organizations assess their risks, prioritize what needs to be looked at first, and we do that through a myriad of ways. One of the ways we have a vulnerability discovery assessment that's actually a Rockwell but an ES&E delivered product. We go out, we run a scan on your network, we tell you, hey, all these systems are vulnerable, here's your vulnerabilities. It kind of prioritizes them from high level to low level. So you know what needs to be hit first, and then what's kind of like the lower hanging fruit, so to speak. So these security assessments are great. They're pretty low cost. It's kind of like a one-time snapshot in time of how your network is and where your risks are. So there is also called VERV. That's a step beyond a security assessment. And there's also what's called Clarity Continuous Threat Detection that's along the same lines. And we offer both, and Rockwell offers both. So it kind of gives you a single pane of glass into your network holistically, whatever's connected to the network, be it via Ethernet IP, and allows you to, react and respond, as well as try to cover, the areas that you need to cover before anything ever happens. God forbid it happens, so right? So there is, compliance and regulatory support. Rockwell and its partners try to get together and say, hey, we want to make sure we're all on the same level playing field. Detect and respond, it's real-time visibility and instant response. So again, that goes back to, security monitoring response. Rockwell does offer that, where it's an off-site, they do it remotely, but you also have the Clarity CTD that's kind of like on-site, you manage it. There's different layers and different levels of that. So preparedness, best efforts, sometimes you still slip through. Again, just like I spoke of earlier, there's been several incidents where everybody's been prepared as well as they could be, and they still get hit with ransomware, because it only takes one person to do the wrong thing, right? We're vendor agnostic, so we integrate seamlessly with the existing infrastructure, so there's no real big issues with that. In the recovery, any kind of cyber attack, whether it be ransomware or just what's called a denial of service, that can bring everything to a halt. That you don't want, depending on what your plant and what your company makes. That can be hundreds of thousands of dollars per hour. So you definitely we have planning and support. So we we can come in and kind of evaluate what you have, help you get a recovery plan in place. In the worst case scenario, if you get hit with some sort of cyber attack, no matter what it is. Obviously, backup and restoration services, either on site or off, to back up those critical systems and have them. There's kind of like what's called, it's not on this slide, but it's what's called the 3-2-1 rule. You have a local copy, an offsite copy, a copy in the cloud. That's kind of like your 3-2-1 rule, right? Rockwell offers their own service. We offer services. We can help implement third-party services, so we're not kind of keyholed into one thing, right? So we'll kind of get into on-device mitigation strategies. What's at risk? Well, if somebody comes in and changes a PLC code, there could be loss of life. There could be stolen intellectual property. There could be production loss, downtime, damage to equipment if it's driven too hard or if a drive is set to too high of a value. There's environmental impact if you work for a company that has hazardous materials and there's no overflow. So there's that. Compliance to regulations, everybody's regulated, to EPA standards and so on and so forth in a lot of instances. So again, the holistic approach, you got to understand your risk, prioritize. There's what's called defense in depth. So you have layers of defense where you've got every one of your client workstations on the OT plant floor need to be protected, as well as firewalls in place, as well as make sure that there's nothing out there that shouldn't be out there. So it's kind of a standard-based approach, all the way from the device to policies and procedures. IEC 62443, that's kind of like drives our security strategy. So there's security governance for product lifecycle and hardware, software, and cloud solutions. There's security products, device security, data encryption, application security, asset management, and remote access. There was one instance, I think it was Home Depot, that had something where they had a vendor remote access into their system and screw something up. They left something open for remote access, and a third-party, bad actor got involved and got a lot of information out of Home Depot's files off of that system. So it's things like that. Security services, so we've got managed, Rockwell offers the managed services to help at every step of whatever you're at the assess level, design level, you're ready to implement or manage it, right? So Rockwell and ES&E, has the capability of starting at the very beginning or coming in midway, right? Right now, there's America's Cyber Defense Agency, right? So it's a central repository for all known exploits and vulnerabilities. A lot of software, such as Clarity, Continuous Threat Detection, and our Vulnerability Discovery Survey, pull from that central repository, as well as Allen Bradley. Rockwell will publish to those as well, right? So it's not just for AB products. It's for Siemens. It's for any and all, OT-related products. It doesn't matter what the vendor is. They should be out there on that list. Like I said, it's basically a catalog for hey, this is what you do to remediate. What the Vulnerability Discovery Survey does, and a lot of other tools, is pulls from that and puts together a report so that it says, hey, click here to go directly to this remediation for this. Instead of you having to do the legwork and the digging, it does it for you, right? So it's a really good reference point to really mitigate and fix those. And there are lots of times, the mitigation will be like, replace what you got because we don't have a fix for it because your stuff's so old. So it is great for finding anything, but overwhelming if you're looking for something specific. There again, that's why we have these products that kind of pull those together for you and give you links to just the pertinent risk, right? And not just an overwhelming amount of data. So looking at SIP security, it helps provide a secure transport for Ethernet IP communication, basically, a network. So OPC UA provides a secure transport per OPC UA network. So integrity, it's a hash-based messaging authentication code. An unauthorized person or device cannot modify the data. Confidentiality, there's AES encryption so that you can't not read the data. Secure communications with OPC UA. So authentication helps prevent the unauthorized clients from establishing connections. Also helps prevent the modification, tampering of communications, and it helps prevent snooping or disclosure of data. So the notable features, it's easy to create and deploy the security policies, leverages a lot of the specs for the certificate management, supports products that don't implement the standard. So that's a good thing, and we want that. It does micro-segment the application into smaller cells and zones, so you can kind of like fine-tune that and get as granular as you want. Interoperability, so you can add servers and clients from multiple vendors to a single system model. So again, it's more of an interoperability type thing. And manage all the policies in one central tool, so you don't have to go to multiple tools to manage those policies. In the SIP security, you've got your authentication, integrity, and confidentiality, so same things there. Same exact thing as the other, system management, segmentation. One thing that's a little bit different is, enable, disable, available ports, device-based firewall, so to speak. You do still have the legacy system support with the trusted IP and the retrofit 1756 systems with the EN4TR. You can leverage the proxy device in front of legacy products as well. So this is kind of like the portfolio of the enabled devices, SIP security enabled. So control logics, compact logics, kinetics, PowerFlex, and there's the SIP security products proxy for the products that don't support it, right? So you can put that right in front of it. So it kind of covers all angles, right? Automatic policy deployment, so it's kind of like a worry-free device replacement for the control system. So it's kind of like automated. There's some that would have to be manual, but for the most part in the factory talk system services, everything's kind of automated. Bridging control, policy for controlling data exchange between physical interfaces and backplanes. So it kind of like stops things from going from here to there across the backplane. So that's the 1756 control logics, 5580 controllers, the EN4TR, all firmware revisions on those. The 5069 compact logics and the 5069 controllers version 34 or higher. Ported interfaces are Ethernet IP and USB. I don't know a lot of people that really utilize USB, but it still happens. Let's look into the Rockwell patch management. So the patch rollups, we do have a lot of those out there, or Rockwell has a lot of those out there, different versions of the rollups. So there's a new practice and methodology, kind of like all patches are combined in one installation instead of having to do 15 or 20 patches, right? It's a little bit better than it used to be a couple of years ago. So it's just called patch rollup. It's comprehensive, but it does take longer. Obviously, it's automated, but let's say you're doing a patch roll-up, and for each patch or 3 patches, it's got to reboot the device. It takes longer, but on the back end, it takes longer. The front end, it takes less time, right? The factory talk updater is central and local software updater, so you can quickly identify if your software is up to date and if there are any patches. So that's kind of nice to have. Automatically linked to download specific patches, so that's you don't have to go find those as well, or a patch roll-up for that matter. So on the deployment, the patch immediately or roll out each patch. So you use the download and deploy dialog to set up install patch to multiple computers. So the user does have the option to install the patch immediately, or you can schedule that for a specified time. All right, so OT firewalls, they're kind of similar to the IT firewalls, but they're specialized to protect the ICS or industrial control systems and your OT side of things from cyber threats. And we basically focus on industrial protocols and real-time communications requirements, unlike IT firewalls, which kind of do the exact opposite, right? They're designed to withstand harsher environments, higher temperatures, higher humidities, things like that. They're designed to manage industrial protocols, which are critical for ICS systems, right? Industrial control systems. The OT firewalls are a little bit different because they have to have a lower latency and real-time communication for critical operations, where IT firewalls typically do not have that. As well as network segmentation. We want to isolate the IT from the OT, right? So that's what's called a demilitarized zone, where this kind of firewalls fit in. There's also a lot of firewalls, the newer ones that we offer, have threat detection and prevention. So it deploys a lot of techniques like deep packet inspection to detect and block the malicious traffic targeting those industrial control systems. Compliance, they're a little bit more strict on the industry specific compliance. And there's the industrial Internet of Things. so they can enhance security for those IoT devices and traffic. So I know you know a lot about Internet of Things and industrial Internet of Things. It's the same thing. It's just like plug and play devices that just sporadically there, like your Internet of Things device, if you got like a Ring camera or anything like that, or a smart refrigerator or any type of smart devices, they're kind of an Internet of Things device, right? So the purpose of the firewalls, so it's boundary of protection. They act as a security boundary, separating the ICS OT network from other networks like the internet or the corporate IT network. Traffic control, they monitor and control the flow of network traffic, ensuring only authorized communications are allowed if they're set up properly. You could have a firewall all you want, but if it's improperly implemented or configured, it's not going to do you a lot of good. Protecting critical assets. The primary goal is to safeguard your ICS systems and processes from unauthorized access, cyber attacks, and disruptions. You don't want disruptions. So industrial control protocol support. Their designs, OT firewalls, are designed to understand and handle those protocols that are, specific to industrial environments, such as Modbus, OPC, UA, and Profibus. So the reliability, they must be able to withstand, like we said, harsh industrial conditions, dust, vibration, temperature extremes, and sometimes, constant operation. Hopefully constant operation, because you don't want your firewall to go down. They create a lot of boundaries between the control systems to keep that traffic contained. So if there is an incident, say on the IT side of things, what your OT firewall is designed to do, and that DMZ is just segment you off, you're not affected by that threat, right? Or threat actor, whatever the case may be. Downtime of avoidance. You want to be sure all your stuff is up and running, unlike IT systems where if your email's down 10 minutes, nobody cares. But if your production line's down 10 minutes, somebody's going to care real quick. Deep packet inspection, so they can automatically detect any and block any malicious traffic targeting those industrial control systems. So asset discovery, OT firewalls can even help with asset discovery and visibility, because you may have things out there connected on your network that'll show up saying, hey, the firewall is seeing traffic from something at 192.168.11.251. I don't know what that device is. So that's a red flag. You want to kind of investigate that, see what's going on. So it gives you insights to devices and protocols within your OT network that you may not even know are connected or have connected to your network. So a lot of people don't even have 100% inventory of what they got connected, much less are they protecting it. Talked about the DMZ, demilitarized zone. So it's a common deployment pattern to place the OT firewall in a DMZ segment between the OT and the internet or other untrusted networks. So it's used to segment the OT network into different zones, so you can actually have different zones within the same firewall. So you could have certain areas be able to do certain things that others can't. If you've got one device that needs to have remote access, you can have a rule say, okay, as long as it meets this specific criteria at this specific time, you can have access to the internet to this one IP address. But you can kind of define it and really have a very deep down approach to how you can limit that access and connectivity. Edge security, so deploying the firewalls at the edge of the OT network closest to the industrial devices, that provides an extra layer of security. So you could have multiple firewalls set up where you could have zone A protected from zone B and zone C and so on and so forth. So it's more of a multi-layered approach, so to speak. Allow deny rules, so their firewalls have rules. So it says, hey, allow this or block it. So there's something called a denial and allow all on a firewall rule. So unless explicitly told, it's deny all. So you have to set those rules up. There's also what's called access control lists. So you can block based on MAC address, you can block based on IP address, or user for that matter. So a rule might allow traffic from a specific PLC, this is just an example, to a specific port, to a specific server, but block all other traffic. So it only allows one TCP/IP port, but will disallow all other traffic. So this kind of shows a graphic of where your industrial DMZ is. that's going to sit, above level 3 and below level 4 of your network is where that's going to be. That doesn't mean you cannot have additional firewalls down in this layer. You can absolutely have that, and I've seen it. I've set it up. So there's no reason you couldn't have an additional firewall here protecting this zone or this cell area zone, this cell area zone, and this one. So there's no limit. You can, so to speak, firewall yourself to death where you have too many, but it just depends on how to set up. Every system and every plant and every network is unique. So there's no two that are kind of cookie cutter type things, right? We kind of hit on this just a little bit, the continuous threat detection solutions. So it kind of gives you a snapshot, like I said, in time of your OT network. It identifies the vulnerabilities and prioritizes them. So now we get into, there's something called Clarity Continuous Threat Detection. This is Clarity has partnered for several years with Rockwell, and we're also a Clarity partner at ES&E. So this is kind of like not just a snapshot in time of what your issues are. This is like a continuous threat detection monitoring solution that will actually integrate with firewalls as well to help you remediate and continuously look for any threats that may be coming into your system. So it helps on that level as well. So this is more of a vulnerability discovery, snapshot in time, CTD, ongoing solution to help mitigate and ensure that you don't have anything going on in your network that you don't want to be there. So there's also one of the cool things with Clarity is an asset inventory that's associated with Clarity as well. So it will tell you, how many OT devices, how many IT devices, how many IoT devices you have out there, how many are external. So it gives you a lot of information. It gives you the same information and more that the vulnerability discovery or snapshot in time will give you. So it's a pretty robust type continuous threat detection, or one of the various continuous threat detection things that we offer through Rockwell and ES&E. So it'll also give you kind of like a network grid of how everything is connected and how it's communicating with each other, right? So it'll give you that information as well. Virtually segments the networks into virtual zones or logical groups that communicate with one another under normal circumstances. So it enables further features such as threat detection capabilities with cross-zone communication, violation alerts. You can have it email you, text you, whatever, that hey, there's an issue. So it's not the next day before you know that there's an issue going on. Exposure management. So it shows you a risk score. It'll give you a total number of vulnerabilities, and it'll show you whichever ones are critical, whether they're high, whatever the case may be. So it utilizes 5 detection engines to automatically profile all assets. Once you initially set up any type of threat detection software, whether it's Clarity or otherwise, it has to learn your system and learn what normal traffic is before it can alert you to traffic that's not normal, right? So there has to be kind of a honeymoon period, so to speak, for that to sit on your device before it's actually going to recognize anything. So it's behavioral based after that point.